This is Margaret Ann Windsor, and I was kidnapped and brought from Buckingham Palace to Moulton, Alabama. I'm not even going to tell about this again. This is me, 1943, kidnapped at age 2, born in 39. Uncle George helped in it with Roosevelt, 1939, planning it. Plot to take down King Edward VIII, my father, who never married. This American spy, she married double. 1984, Larry Flynt. I'd been out at his home in 83 in a campaign to replace Congressman Dr. Larry McDonald I'd written about in a medical malpractice book. 1978, while living at Moonraker Apartments in Marietta, same time Larry Flynt was shot in Lawrenceville, Georgia. Done in pattern. I'd never met Mr. Flynt until 83 when the KAL was shot down that Larry McDonald was supposed to be on, Congressman Doctor. Now, the congressmen have to know all this. They've known about my kidnapping from day one. Eisenhower, Truman, all of them. Your Secretary of States, that includes Ms. Clinton up there. So this was done in April of 84. And that was for the presidential, but there were I was flown out to Mr. Flynt's in 83 twice. I stayed in his home, and he did furnish me a car for a year, and I've never heard from him since then. My God, he was locked up. I know that I'm going to put this in because I had just met him, and when I went in, he paid for my ticket out there, and the limo driver was a black man that owned a limo service, and it had this big sign up, Mrs., and I was penniless. And I thought, what if they don't show up? What am I going to do? Well, there was a big sign saying Mrs., and he came up to me and he said, "Are you Mrs. Childers?" And I said, yes. Of course, I was divorced, so I didn't understand the Mrs., but he gave me a card. He said Mr. Flynt had sent him out, and he said, "Will you please make sure he gets this my card?" He said, "I have not seen him since he was shot in Lawrenceville." That was in 78. He said he was my best friend. Evidently, this limo driver visited him, was always the one Mr. Flynt called. He said, "I can't get through to him. Will you?" He said, "I don't know why they called me suddenly tonight." So he takes me there, and I go in, and first thing Mr. Flynt said to me was, "You don't have to tell me anything about yourself. I know everything there is to know. I know they were going to send you back a vegetable." I didn't understand. It was right after then I started finding out about being kidnapped from Buckingham Palace and my real name. So I understood. He knew about the antifreeze and all of it. And being from England, they were going to send me back a vegetable. So now I want to go back to the mental health system. And there's a lot to this of what some Jews did. A misdiagnosis, diagnosis murder. Exactly what it was. And that's been proven since, totally, without any doubt. But they're dead. Some of them are dead. I mean, it's an ongoing thing, but Hyman Miller's dead, and I could go on with the names involved with him and what they did, and Gonzalez is still alive, still in practice. He has a son, Gonzalez Jr., down there. They've lived an opulent life. Nothing's happened to them. They've committed every crime in the book. So now then, I want to get back to this. I did not know when I came back from Texas. I was out there to try to stay with Laura a couple of weeks, John's sister, and find a job and hopefully get away from Atlanta. They were doing stuff to my children, their cars, everything. Horrible. And me. And I thought it was because of the book. I hadn't learned about my kidnapping till late 83. I got out to Laura's almost, and I called. I had no money hardly, and I called. I'd slept in the roadside park thing, and I got out there and called her, and I said, "I'm here. I'm on my way in a couple more hours." And she suddenly changed over the couple of days it took me to get out there, that I could no longer come and stay in her home. And that was it. So I ended up turning around shocked and went back. Found out my apartment was gone. During the time, a couple of days, the manager had allowed John to sign a new lease. She totally knew. I put this up on so many videos, but the couple prior to this one, I'm going to put them 1, 2, 3. I don't know what the title. But she had allowed him illegal to take over move my furniture from the apartment, and it was my lease and my everything. And I had told her when John came back why. But I know now she was part of the FBI. I got a letter from the FBI June the 23rd, my father's birthday, by the way, of 79, though, about the book and ongoing investigation. And really, Philip, and I'm not going to mention Philip anymore. I don't want to hurt him. He told me, I thought the FBI just came in because of the book, because my phone it was horrible what was going on, but also it could be made you look flaky. Philip, there was an FBI investigation. Michael Kean, the person I thought was Michael Kean, he was special agent. It wasn't the one that thought was Michael Kean. The one I knew was tall and blonde and anyway, Malcolm Barber, and God knows he was one of the good guys, Malcolm Barber. There were some good ones there in Atlanta, or I wouldn't have made it, okay? Now then, where am I? I was talking about, anyway, the FBI, I think, run Laurelwood Apartments. The manager that I went to and signed the lease, and when John came in, I took him up there. I told her, he's not on my lease. He has nothing to do with it. He's the father of the children. Mark was having sugar put in the lifters, and all kinds of stuff was happening. The car was going out on the interstate after he got off from work at 11 o'clock at night, out in the middle of, so they were terrorizing the boys. And John came back. I told her he's my ex-husband and everything. So this was all really planned. When I left around March the 8th to go out to, Laura was in Abilene. She's out. She's still alive, I think, Laura. She should be put under oath, this good Christian woman. You should read about her on YouTube and everything. That has lied and helped in trying to kill me is really what she did. Now I want to get to this, if I can, before this goes off. When I went back from Laura's, I got back and I stopped by Marshall Carnwright's office. He's a U.S. Marshal. And I went out to what now, while I was gone, they allowed John to do this. I only had $350 in my bank account, but they'd let him sign a new lease, move my furniture into another apartment just down the street. It was the same Laurelwood apartment, same manager that did. I had no key. I had no apartment. When I got back, all of it illegal, no bank account. So now then, April Fool Day, a couple weeks later, antifreeze was put in me. And I'll tell you where I was at, Lois Pearson's in Marietta. And she's got a long history. She should have been locked up before they compromised her. She worked for doctors, by the way, and her sister, the Phillips, out in Marietta. And she worked for Kennesaw Hospital. Antifreeze was put in me, but you get so much. You get Hardiman, Dr. Hardiman of the Gene Stroker murder at Piedmont. Larry McDonald, his family were all involved in Piedmont Hospital. Larry McDonald was, I know. And I'm going to quit because it gets into a whole mess there. But Hardiman, my ex-husband, doctors were involved, and Lina Dempsey. It was the weirdest thing it's ever told. Anyway, she shouldn't even have been in Atlanta. She lives in Huntsville. She didn't have money, except she was a friend of ex-Senator John Sparkman, who helped collect all this stuff on my kidnapping. She was with him when he died, by the way, in Huntsville in about 1983 or something. Anyway, she's suddenly over there. I woke up at Lois Pearson's and I knew I was dead. I went to the emergency room, and suddenly Lina Dempsey called there at Lois's just before I left. I could hardly talk. So she come by, though, and picked me up, is how it happened. She's suddenly there, and took me to the emergency room. Well, that's where they got me. A doctor there was not supposed to be on staff. It was a nightmare. The tox was never done. You do not want to see this world what they did to me there. It ended up that my ex-husband came back, and they allowed him to. I did get out. I couldn't go back home. I shouldn't have been. I went for a tox screen. It was never done. I'm going to fast forward because it's such a nightmare. I was shoved into a car, Lina Dempsey's car, and I put it up before. Philip and his wife helped shove me in, and Nancy said to me, Philip can't help you. The agency he works for is helping do it to you. So I'm across the state line. Dempsey is threatening me. A good thing I didn't know about I was the Queen of England, right? Or they really had something to try to lock me up on. So then she stops. I have no money, no one to call. And she says if I don't go in, she'll call the cops and have me locked up anyway. Well, she did later on. Illegal. She used it as a murder weapon. Jack Hartsfield helped me. But what I wanted to say was this. John Childers, my ex, had gotten my apartment. I did not know in all this time. I was afraid he was going to hurt my kids. I was afraid to tell that they'd tried to kill me with antifreeze. My kids did not understand at all. They thought I deserted them, I guess, and I was in such a shape I couldn't do anything. Really trying to work for the DA and Doyle Duke, and computer science just to stay alive and have an apartment at Warren Apartments. Warren and Simpson is like clues to my identity. Kennedy kidnapped me, and Simpson was supposed to marry my dad. That was a lie. Anyway, what I wanted to get to here was at no time when I needed it could I get the divorce enforced. And when I was back, I didn't know John had remarried. And when I was back in Atlanta, I walked in the hot sun. They put me on the side of the road with nothing, getting rides and hoping I didn't get killed, trying to get the law to work for me. And I'm trying to make sure I got some time on here. Now then, I was back in Atlanta trying to get. I remember I called John. I got in touch. I went to the cops at Cobb County. They up in the shopping center there. It's gone now. And I called someone I did know, and they said I could come out there and stay. Stafford was her name, Campbell. And she married Stafford. Well, I got a phone call back while I'm sitting at the Cobb County, it's kind of like a satellite office at Cumberland Mall. And the cops give me the phone, and the people I just talked to that were going to come pick me up says, sorry, they won't let you come out here. So next thing is John Childers pulls up in my son's car with my son. My sons do not know what really happened at all. And he's going to pay for me in a cheap motel, by the way, for a couple of nights. So need I say more? He had threatened me back when I had no job, went over there and stayed at the Barclay. The Greyhound driver paid for my couple of nights there. He listened to asked me, and I talked to him, and he gave me the room for 2 nights. I called R.J. Reynolds. Terry was his name. Wanted John's phone number, and this is after my apartment, after the antifreeze, all this. And next thing I know, John shows up with Scott, my son, where I'm at the Barclay, and he said, if you don't shut up, he said, I'm going to do the same thing to you that Lina Dempsey was. And it was use the mental health system on me as an attempt to murder me and discredit you. So now that I'm fast forwarding back when I came back there again, I walked this time out to the Marietta. This is a good bit in the hot sun. I walked out there and tried to file to get my alimony. Well, instead, I was met with someone who said he was a Kent chief inspector. I think it kind of shocked me, what title is that? And he said, I want to ask you a few questions. He said, do you know your name? Well, what do? I give him the same name I'm having to use now, Peggy Ann Dempsey. I married Childers. He said, what color is your eyes? What color is your hair? He said, are you sure? He said, I think he said, are you a citizen of this country? I thought that was kind of weird. Anyway, he got up. He said, oh, we put you through the system and the okay, I'm losing my train of thought. Who looks after the president? And in the title and who I am, I find out they were supposed to support me, help me. Secret Service. Cox and Call came out. Well, it was a response to me leaving the book up at the White House with the book, a letter from the FBI, and a letter from Revell Publishing where they almost took my book. The next thing I know, I walk out the door and I said, well, are y'all going to help me? Why are you here? Are you going to help me find a place to live? I don't have anywhere to go from here. I'm trying to get a divorce enforced. No. So why were they there? Anyway, I'm going to jump from there to John Childers. He had married Twyla Joyce Pelland, Pelland. She was a hairstylist. Her last name's Childers. I think she's remarried. And I'm going to leave it at that. This woman tried to go with John and had me locked up in the mental health out at Lawrenceville, Georgia, where Larry Flint was shot, is where the state mental hospital is. They have used everything. Everything has been done to me and my sons. The police showed me the papers. She tried to sign them, or did, and they wouldn't accept it. They said they had to have somebody kin to me. Well, they forced my children, and John did it himself. And then is where I found out, you talk about scared to death, my God, but there was a girl there, and she kept telling me her name was Penny Lane, and she'd been kidnapped. Well, Penny Lane is connected with the Beatles and British, and so you can get the gist of going along and like I lived at Bambi Rob's when I was in the campaign and flown out to Flint's. Bambi, I ended up in the forest up here living, and Forrest Sawyer was pulled. He was the reporter who's retired now. So it's kind of like you get the gist, like living, working for Fred Simpson as in Wallace Simpson, so you get it. Everybody did, but it's a horror story. The thing is that John, I'm end up here on the mountain living, trying to live. My job shut down everything, shelter, anything, side of the road. I took to getting a tent when I could afford one, lived on the mountain, and it was hell. Believe me. Anyway, I didn't know when John died. I did try walking. I had no money. I've been kept penniless, homeless. I walked back. I'd start out walking back to Atlanta trying to find my children. I couldn't get their phone numbers or anything. And I did find out that he was, I called Bob Barkley, who was a friend of John's and a kind of friend of mine. I lost contact with him, but he said John was dying of cancer. Or he was in the hospital for it. Anyway, I had to turn around and come right back. I had no place to stay, and I was threatened at the bus station. So there was a black man walked up and handed me $50